Hello and welcome to today's webinar, UniversalPlantViewer Workflow System. My name is Daniel Dolinsky and I'm the lead business process architect at CA Experts. Today's webinar will take about 20 minutes, so we'll have a 15 minutes demo and about 5 minutes of questions and answers. So first of all, I want to show you how the workflow system integrates into your infrastructure. So the workflow system comes as part of the UPV web services. So you probably already know the browser-based viewing, which is the browser-based version of the Universal Plant Viewer. So you can use the Universal Plant Viewer within any browser and work with it, and it's rendered on a server. So the workflow system complements this part. So it's adding the functionality to store the state of the UPV tree items in a database, including the versioning, and it allows you to create user interfaces, for example, for punch lists, workflows, and so on. So it really allows you to add metadata to the items that you have in the 3D or 2D model within Universal Plant Viewer. With the upcoming version 6.3 of Universal Plant Viewer, it's also possible then to have a cached communication. This allows you to create on an app, for example, on Windows, iOS, or Android, some UPV tree items, and as soon as you have internet connection again, they get sent to the workflow system, and it's also pulling new items from the workflow system. So let's go to the live demo. So the system is running on a server, on a web server, and so we have a web interface here. First of all, I want to show you how it looks like from a user's perspective. So a user would find a list of workflow items here, and there are a lot of filter options. So you can filter for the plant or project, for the name of the workflow item, and of course you would filter for the persons these items are assigned to. We can also have stakeholders that are other people that are informed by email if there is something changed regarding these items. Then we can freely define a workflow type that's available in a drop-down list. And of course, we have a status like new or finished and so on. So here it's just a standard table. You can sort in here, you can filter. So for example, here I've filtered for the items from my colleague Christine. And you can also have a quick preview on these items. So for example, if I click here, it's opening up the screenshot. So it shows me what is the current state of this item. Or down here, it's showing what's going up with this markup. I can also open up these items by clicking on this link. And here we have a standard form to modify these items. So in the workflow system, we have just 5 attributes that have to be set. So we need to have a name for the workflow item. It has to be attached to a plant or project in UPV. It has to be assigned to a person from the drop-down list here. We have to set a workflow type, and there's this field here with stakeholders. So here in this list, I could add people that need to get email notifications if there are changes to this item. All the other properties down here, like status, discipline, and so on, can be modified by the admin. So it's possible to create a template for this area of the form. So you can have additional dates, code list items, notes, and so on. So that's freely defined down here. So what happens when you create these items is that it's always storing the information in this history. So you can see that Christine had started with a little modification. So she did a markup on this PNID drawing. Then an additional markup got added. And then finally, I added this yellow circle. So it's really taking care about the changes. And you can push the button here to download or show the preview of the old stages of this modification. So let's see how this links to Universal Plant Viewer. So I can push the button up here, show 3D model, and it's now connecting to the browser-based viewing. As you can see over here in the tree, usually it would just start with a model tree, but now running in the WorkFlowSystem environment, you see this additional tree, and it's exactly the name we have over here in the name area of our ticket. So I can go to this area and just click the show button over here. So it jumps now to the current state of this markup. So inside of this folder, you can have any type of tree item. So that could be a 3D sketch, a 2D or 3D markup. It could be a photo that you've taken with your mobile phone, GPS coordinates. So all the stuff that is available in the tree, in the drop-down menu here, that's also available in here. So you can use any markup, any drawing, whatever you like, and just put it into this folder so it gets synchronized with the workflow system. Now I can, of course, modify this one. So I can, for example, add an additional green circle over here. And as soon as I press the Save button, as you can see, it's connecting to the workflow system and storing this stage of the markup. So I get it over here, and that's now the current version of it. So basically, it's getting the items from the tree, storing them in the database with a version number, keeping the history there, and it allows you to add these extra properties, additional metadata to these items. So this solves the issue that you might be a user of Universal Plant Viewer. You create a markup like this, and you have to send it at the moment back to the main office using an email. Here it's talking directly to the workflow system, identifying the user and putting this at the correct position in the database. Basically, that's it from a user perspective. So really easy to handle. So you have some properties here that you need to fill in. So you can write comments, and it's keeping the history of the items down here in this area. So what can you do from a company perspective, and how could an admin configure this? So let's just go back to these items here. So when I open up the left menu, the standard user will only see the workflows. So it's basically this list over here. For the administrator, a lot of items are freely configurable. So the administrator can create links to UPV models, and they don't have to be on the same computer, so they could be stored somewhere else. The admin can also create code lists. So for example, here for the status, we have a code list where the code list values 1 to 49 in here. And we have some entry values like new, in work, and so on. So you can create your own code lists to define a status for a certain item, for example. So here are just a couple of examples. Then, of course, you can have your users and your users groups as an admin. So here, for example, we've created a group for site engineers, 3D designers, P&ID designers. And according to these groups, we will set the access rights for these users. So that's done down here in permissions. So here we can set the access rights, and this is going down to a very low detail level, so you can really switch on and switch off certain options on a form. Then it's possible to create views. So that's an option on the workflows where you have some preset views, for example, just to filter for planned activities or ongoing activities. So this is done using OData expressions. So OData is a standard for defining these expressions. So your admin would probably know how to handle them. So it's a string like this that allows you to filter for the items in the list view. And last but not least, we have these templates over here that allow you to define custom forms. So it's exactly the area at the bottom of these 5 mandatory settings. So for example, we could have a form for rework, and this is just a simple XML template where we define the fields that are available. So here, for example, we would have a field for the status, and it's pulling the data from a code list, and the default value would be 1, and it's required, so you have to set a value there. So really simple, just plain XML, and that defines how these additional items on the form should look like. We have also done some translation work here for the tool. So as you can see, we have this drop-down box up here. So currently it's set to English, but I can also switch this, for example, to German. So it's immediately transforming the user interface, or Korean. So it's also easy to configure this. It's just a translation file coming with a workflow system. So if you need, for example, to translate this into French or Spanish, it's no problem at all. You can easily add it over there. So now let's get back to the user perspective. I already showed you how the filtering can be set up here in views. So we have seen 3 items there, and that are exactly these 3 filter settings here for the planned activities, ongoing activities, my planned activities, and so on. So the admin is free to define some presets over there to make it easier for the designers, the engineers, and the workers to filter for the items they need to handle, for example, on site. So let's have a look at 3D. So we have already seen a markup on the 2D. So here we see a preview of a 3D markup. So I can also go to this ticket over there, and I open up the viewer. And again, I just need to press the show button to get this markup over here. Now I can add additional items there. So, for example, I could create a sketch. So as you can see, it's adding this over there to the 3D vessel modification, which is linked to this item. And on the sketch, I can just, for example, place an object. And as soon as I press the save button, both items, the markup and the sketch, get synchronized to the database. So I get the preview over here, and that's now the official version of this ticket. So it's not just a markup, it's also containing the sketch. So that's regarding the functionality. As you can see, it's really easy to handle. So it's really for any stakeholder in the project, not just for the engineers in the back office. So you can easily find out what you need to do, what has to be handled. So for example, somebody could just take some pictures of items with leakage on site, and also these pictures get linked to the history in here. And so you can have a check before and after it's getting fixed. So somebody would take the pictures, send them back to the main office. Somebody is taking care there, creates additional stakeholders, and so it's getting fixed, and somebody takes a picture that it's fixed, and so you can close the ticket. So that would be one of the classical workflows for a tool like this.